This podcast may contain language not appropriate for children.
So hide your Clefairies and Clefables out there.
Brilliant, perfect tagline. This is how we start the episode. Do you have something witty to say, Hovin?
Check, please.
Welcome, dear all, to PokemonAdventures. We are a quarterly retrospective podcast aiming to discuss the PokemonAdventures manga, also known as Pokemon Special, arc by arc. We're going to explain what PokemonAdventures is all about, how our Pokemon journey started, and talk about our favourite characters and moments of the series in this introductory episode quite soon. But first of all, I have two lovely people here with me, and I think we should all introduce ourselves. Let's start with the worst one. I'm Wensleydale Cheddar.
No,
Aww.
You're not the worst one.
I podcast about Japanese comics on the internet in English while being Polish. I know, it's confusing. In Manga Mosaic, my show, which was sometimes a video essay, I've stuck to miscellaneous Shonen Jump manga, but the mainstay of my channel is Duckface Diaries, a World Trigger retrospective podcast about a sci-fi series from the same magazine. So this is the second retrospective show I'm doing, and I'm lucky to have my Duckface partner, HovinwithanH, as well as my World's Elsewhere Theatre company buddy, Henry Kathman, with me.
Hello.
Hovin, who are you and what do you do on the internet?
Well, I am an occasional podcaster and YouTuber, by which I mean I did one video essay on World Trigger that I was really, really happy with, and it's kind of been a drip feed since.
You know, you did the one. You did the thing, and then it's like, well, I've clearly won YouTube, so get out while you're still ahead, I guess.
Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
That is what the youths call a mood for me.
In your case, it's like the opposite of that, it seems like, Hovin, but alright. The one time I was in, they pulled me back out.
And by they, I mean me.
Yeah! This makes sense.
I am a manga enthusiast, a bit of a video game casual. You know, I enjoy playing them, but I rarely find the time to do it. I mainly post jokes about manga all day on Twitter as like a hobby. I also really like tabletop and D&D. I do plenty of that.
You rarely have the time to play them, but you certainly have the time to impulse buy them.
What, tabletop?
The video games.
No, I only have time for tabletop.
What about you, Henry? Who are you and what do you do?
I do what we call too much on the internet, as I try to do a new video every month on the channel, from video essays to all sorts of strangeness. I've mostly talking about Western animation stuff. Most people know me for talking a lot about Moomin. I also host a podcast where I talk about Barbie and other stuff that are relating to girl toy properties that are turned into films. And if that isn't enough, I also designed a whole freaking RPG. Like I said, too many things, arguably.
I did really like the pilot of Infinity Train. I do need to catch up on it, not just for the show itself, specifically to listen to your podcast.
Oh, well, I do think the nice thing is that I have tried to make it as welcoming to people who are unfamiliar with the show. So for many people, they've talked to me about how oh yeah, the RPG got them interested in actually watching the show because I presented it in an interesting enough way, which I suppose that's sort of the goal with any fan project, I suppose. You know, get people interested in the property that you're passionate about.
It is the dream. It is quite difficult to get people into World Trigger, though.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
I have had so many friends be like, yeah, no, I'm planning to get around to it now that you're doing your series. And it's like, okay, we're over a year in. And it's still not... I still haven't had any newbies, new recruits.
Perhaps we'll have more luck with this endeavor because I imagine many more people are going to be passionate about the property that we're going to be discussing today. God, that sounded like a diss against World Trigger.
We're gonna get so much people into Pokemon. It's such an obscure thing, but we're gonna make it popular, guys. It's going to happen.
Because Lord knows they really need it right now. That fandom is just on its last legs. Hashtag save Pokemon.
Save private Pokemon.
Indeed.
It's only the literally the highest grossing franchise in the world, I believe, in the recent survey.
It is definitely up there in terms of properties.
Because the thing is, it's so multifaceted. Just off Pikachu merch alone, that's like a whole wing of it.
Pokemon is just one of those things where part of the reason why it's so ubiquitous is that it does have all that cross-media promotion, where if you're a fan of the anime, you have a pretty easy entry point into the games. If you're a fan of the games, you have a pretty easy entry point into the trading card game. If you're a fan of that, you can buy into the crappy gacha games that they're pawning on mobile right now. But Pokemon is just one of those, more people in our generation get older. It's one of those franchises that more people are going to have to think about a relationship with, because it is it is a franchise that, at least for me, provokes thoughts, TM.
I guess we can get into that when we go through our overall Pokemon journeys, but I guess we could give a bit of information about the manga we're talking about first.
So Pokemon basically started with like 2 megabytes worth of a game, and it is a manga that started as a tie-in to that game. Is a manga more strictly made within the setting of the games than the anime, which is perhaps more ubiquitous? Well, it's not exactly tied to its game story. So, like, the settings as presented is almost exactly just like in the games. There is no, like, hop town randomly sprinkled throughout the middle of the region where there needs to be a filler episode. The protagonist is not Ash. Protagonists are based on basically what we know of the game sprites, so...
I mean, and a common misconception is that the PokemonAdventures came after the widely popular Pokemon anime series, but many people don't know is that PokemonAdventures first premiered in March of 1997, whereas the anime premiered in April of 1997. So it's beat it ahead by a month or so. This manga seems very indicative of the very large marketing push that Nintendo, Game Freak, and all of that subsidiaries was trying to do by 1997 to try and make it the phenomenon that it is today.
Yeah.
The localization, Pokemon Monsters Special, was published in English as PokemonAdventures by Viz Media. The series was originally released monthly in single issues from September 1999 to 2003, with bound volumes being published since July 6th, 2000. The series has been republished in a second edition since July 2nd, 2009, featuring a new translation with right-to-left artwork, unlike the first one, and content omitted from the previous translation. However, there are some edits in the new-to-American audience volumes. Viz released a series of mini-volumes titled Pokemon Black and White as PokemonAdventures Special Edition, with the volume versions coming later as PokemonAdventures Black and White, released since July 2nd, 2013. Volume 43 was published as the first volume. It is also published in Spanish by Norma Editorial in Spain and Tokan Manga in Mexico, in Portuguese by Panini Comics in Brazil, and in Italian by Edizioni BD under the GP Manga and J-Pop imprints.
What the fuck? There is no Polish publication info on my anime list. Well, not my anime list anymore.
I mean, Anilist gang, to be honest, but, you know.
I remember, like, in Polish, one issue was basically published, either that or several chapters, 4 chapters, I think. So I think it was just one volume, and that's it.
Dang.
The protagonist, as we alluded to before, is not Ash. Each protagonist, or dex holders, they're named after the many games. So you get a character called Red, Blue, Yellow, and Green, then from the next generation onward, Gold, Silver, and Crystal, and so on and so forth.
I guess that is sort of the biggest thing that does differentiate this from other incarnations of Pokemon media like the anime, where because you have those different protagonists in there, it does allow a differentiation and characterization that you don't generally get to see in a lot of other Pokemon-related media. But obviously we'll get into more of that once we get into each of the individual dex holders.
I do really like how this kind of serialized story does allow for the characters to change, for each of the region protagonists to be very different from each other sometimes.
Because, obviously I've not read this, but, like, I remember among my friends at school my friends at school that liked Pokemon and we always kind of we all shared the mindset of we like the games, but we don't like the anime. Which I think some of it might have been the lack of interactivity kind of hitting home how kid-oriented it was. Because, you know, these were my friends, we were like young teens. So, But then I think one aspect that did always kind of annoy me is that I was confused why it stuck with Ash for so long as opposed to moving on to other pro tags. I don't think for any actual story critique reasons, it's just it was different from the game, so I don't like it.
Characters age. This is the most shocking thing. Red at this point in the story might be like 25 or something.
Well, well, as we're gonna see, actually, due to some chicanery, Red is more or less 18-ish. He should be older, but due to circumstances is not. But I'm not going to spoil you guys on that little development. But I will say this. I've been one of those people I'm still one of those people that, like, still follows the anime pretty closely and has a relatively soft spot for Ash as a character, although I have a propensity for rooting for the characters that fandoms generally revile. I don't know what that sort of says about me, but I get this is going to be going into, like, there is a sense of progression in time when it comes to PokemonAdventures, where that you don't see as much in the anime because, you know, you got to keep that shonen anime audience of young boys, so you got to keep making Ash that 10-year-old to be hashtag relatable. But I think that I've had thoughts about, like, ways that they could change bits of the anime, but that's a conversation that is for another podcast.
Yeah, and another conversation for another podcast. For, like, Patreon rewards, my partner and I started doing some Pokemon Sun and Moon mini podcasts. We did, like, generally had a lot of fun with it. What provoked me to, like, take a look back at the Pokemon anime, which I might have been, like, necessarily, like, prejudiced against. It's not, like, in the game, so that means it must be bad. Was Swait's Pokemon Journey. Really like that review show.
Oh yeah, I mean, I actually followed along the anime, and don't get me wrong, there are some seasons where the formula ends up getting very, very stale, but after, like, Pokemon X and Y, that series, like, honestly revitalized so much of the anime, and people get really angry about the Pokemon Sun and Moon anime for some reason because they changed art styles and animation studios, but it's still like,
what the fuck, it looks so good.
Yeah, I know, but, you know, people be like...
It seemed like a very, like, normal transition to me. Yeah, no, I definitely, I caught a bit of the X and Y one at my university's Pokemon Society, and, like, the improvement in animation is really impressive, even if, like, some of it is still stock. It's, like, it's night and day with what happened before.
Oh yeah. For some people, they see, like, the slightly simplified style as equaling bad without realizing that, because of the slightly more simplified animation style, you can do a lot more elaborate animation and choreograph things in a much more compelling way that you normally would not be able to.
The movement is gorgeous in Sun and Moon. Because the characters don't have to be on model so much, I found myself mesmerized with the episodes.
I've been meaning to get to Sun and Moon. I think one thing for me is that, like, even though X and Y was very impressive, I've just found that I find Pokemon as an anime quite hard to come back to in a way that I don't with Digimon and, like, the first 3 seasons of Digimon and, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, whenever I go back to those, I always find them very charming, even as an adult. I've been watching bits and pieces of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX recently, and, like, there's kind of a camp to it that I really enjoy, partially, like, enhanced by the 4Kids dub, but I don't quite get that from the Pokemon anime.
Honestly, it's really fun to riff on, the Sun and Moon series.
I will definitely give it a look.
I don't know. I kind of have, like... Well, then again, like I said, I've always been an apologist for the anime in bits of ways where... Although I think that might be more emblematic of me being a little bit younger than you guys when I was first watching that anime. Like, that was, like, the show. And obviously there's a lot of nostalgia that's tied into there, which, you know, when it comes to Pokemon, that's, like... That's got to be something that anyone analyzing it's got to keep in mind. But I don't know. For me, at least, in those early seasons, there is something about, like, its extreme earnestness that I know is very easy to, like, kind of turn their noses at and be like, ew, cringe. There's something about, like, the internet where, like, for Pokemon fans, it seems to be like this self-perceived rite of passage into adulthood to be like, oh, actually, the anime is bad. Like, it's this sign of maturity for some people to think about, oh, Ash is so stupid and dumb, and he's actually the worst trainer, even though he's canonically, like, had some of the most impressive Pokemon battles within their world. But that's again, I'm getting into my Ash Ketchum apologia right here.
Oh my god, my nephew is just getting into that hipster phase.
Oh.
I'm curious, because I know some, like, there was a YouTuber who used to talk a lot about Pokemon, Tamashi Hiroka. She likes the anime as well, and she really didn't like that Origins special that, like, a lot of fans of the games really like, where it was, like, basically speed running through the games, and there's, like, a fight, and the Pokemon actually hurt each other. What did you think of that?
I thought it was okay. Like, I appreciated the animation, though I felt like it did lack some of the characterization that you got from the mainline anime series, although that was due by the fact of it being just, like, as you said, them just speed running through the Kanto, and more predicated on just, like, them trying to build up as much, like, fan service as they can before, like, in the 10 episodes that they got. I think it's fine. I feel like some Pokemon fans put way too much stock sometimes into, like, the dark and gritty elements of Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you actually look at the lore in the Pokedex, you could see that it's really dark and edgy, and it's not for babies, Mom.
Oh, fucking Drifloon kidnaps children.
It carries off the kids. Oh, Hypno abducts children. Oh, there's Giratina contains the souls of damned people.
And it's kind of very easy to, like, get into this trap with Special as well, but because it is known for being, as like some reviewers call it, quite metal. It's quite easy to get into that edgelordism.
Oh yeah, and don't worry, dear listener, we will talk about that one panel with that one Pokemon. You know, the one that I literally every single conversation about this manga always gravitates to that freaking panel.
It's so interesting being just, like, completely oblivious to all this. I'm just like, I'll probably just find it and not react that much to it. Be like, oh, wow, that's pretty extreme.
Oh, Hovin, I think you'll probably see, yeah, not to go into specific spoilers, but I think you'll, like, it does come as a slight surprise, especially with Pokemon Special. Like, as you said, people do treat it as this more intense metal thing, as this sort of, like, one-up on the anime, being like, oh, it's so much better than the anime just because it did these dark things. But I think as we're going to be able to get into more with this series, while it's true that this thing does go into more darker material, the core spirit of Pokemon is fundamentally a very approachable and, dare I say, wholesome atmosphere. Like, even when it gets to its darkest points, like, the core themes of this, like, series is, on one hand, it's got those themes on friendship and growth and stuff like that, but also those themes on, like, those environmental themes, caring for this world and all that stuff, where even if it's super scary and stuff, it's still, like, a pretty rad place that should be protected. Sometimes when people, I mean, it doesn't, like, bother me too much, but sometimes just seeing, like, the edgelordification of Pokemon feels like it undermines things that actually make it such a pervasive franchise and make it the thing that has lasted now, oh gosh, it's, like, been 25 years, right?
Way to fucking roast us about our age, by the way. Oh, let me go on this podcast with these fucking geezers.
No, I don't know. I'm just, it's, yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's like, you know, you don't have to bend over backwards to justify liking something that is lighthearted and colourful and has an optimistic tone. Like, you could just like the thing, like...
Exactly. It's a hard lesson for some people on the internet to know sometimes, but yeah, it's good. Just be afraid to like things unironically.
There is like definitely an element of mature storytelling to this,
Oh, definitely.
but cutting a Pokemon in half is not exactly a part of it. In fact, maybe the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny part about that also is that there are like also way more, if you want to do that contest of like, oh, this thing gets super intense and stuff. It gets way more intense in certain places other than that certain section. This thing will go to some places, but it's not going to be like the big focus.
I guess we should perhaps start with go into our Pokemon journeys for a bit. So, PokemonAdventures was actually the first manga I've ever read. But when both of you said that, like, you'd be interested in this, in fact, Hovin, I think, thought about making a Pokemon retrospective on his channel first.
I can't even remember this, wow. I say so many times, like, I'm gonna make this retrospective sometime, and then I just completely forget about it and don't find the time.
So yeah, this is what prompted me to make this, when you said you'd be interested in a project like this. I remember when I was like 11 or something, my mum or my aunt like bought the first volume that was released, and the only volume to this day that was released in Polish as a gift. It's quite amusing to think about it now. I didn't even know what manga was back then, so I thought it was just a coloring book when everything was in black and white, and I just started coloring it.
Oh my god. I mean, that puts you in a similar regard to a lot of the manga fans. When I look up tags for this thing, I do just see people being like, oh, I recolored this thing. So, you were ahead of the game, Wensleydale. That's a way we can frame it.
That's great. I didn't really get far into it at the time because, only one volume was released. I didn't know English very well at the time. It was only later then I visited a Polish Pokemon forum, and I remember one person there was scanulating the manga. I don't want to exactly promote that, especially since like Ace Chrisman, an amazing letterer, was also the letterer for this release of PokemonAdventures, which I encourage you to check out, and also to check out any work that Ace has lettered, because it's a bloody treat. You won't regret it.
It's a thankless job too. Gotta appreciate your letterers, people.
I do really like that Viz in the recent times started crediting the letterers and translators in every chapter of Shonen Jump manga. So that's great.
Yeah.
One person that was scanlating the manga in Polish, like the only version I had access to at the time. And I think it was about midway through Ruby and Sapphire, and then my mum was an English teacher, so I picked up the English chapters afterwards, after I acquired some more English. And then I finished Diamond and Pearl, and then I read up to Black to White to after a few years, but I barely remember what happens from Platinum onwards. In general, I read this so long that I barely remember anything. It's just going to be an interesting read-through. I'm just going to remember what my vibes were at the time and see if it actually held up for me, or who knows, I might prefer the anime now. I can't really speak for the quality. I remember finding Pokemon Special really enjoyable. I thought first of all, the serialized nature of the series really worked for me. To this day, I think I find myself more attuned to serialized than episodic storytelling, which is, you do you, whatever works better for you. I'm not saying that any is like...
Yeah, some people's brains are more wired to serialize stuff. Others people want like a nice self-contained thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that does genuinely still put me off the anime to this day is just like, there are so many situations where it's like, Ash and crew go to stock location A to meet stock filler character B, who has a problem with stock Pokemon C. It's adhered to so closely without much variation, and I do find that a bit repetitive.
Yeah, I think you might not, I don't think you're gonna find it that much with this manga, at least. So...
I say I am mostly speaking from the first 30 episodes of, like, Kanto, and large chunks of the first half of Sinnoh. But that's the most of the anime that I've watched.
Yeah, that's fair. A lot of that anime does follow that structure a lot. Oh, let's meet the Pokemon of the day.
I've heard people praise this manga as closer to the games, but I'd say to me, it's more like closer to the adventure I've got in my head while playing the games. Because honestly, we keep talking about all these spin-offs and such, but I kind of changed my mind after being mostly a game fan, and right now I consider the writing of the games a bit middle of the road. And it's more the story potential of the regions and the backgrounds and, of course, the creatures that inhabited that you can bond with that are the main draw to me. And when you add some charismatic characters into the mix, here's where the fun begins in PokemonAdventures. Who would like to go next?
So I'm just going right from the start of everything. I have not read the manga. So for a while, Pokemon was something that I didn't really understand what it was. Like, I vividly remember I had like an Iron Giant VHS tape, the animated movie, where there was an advert for the Pokemon the first movie that played on it, but I had no idea what was going on in it. There was like... I'd like talk to other kids who had a copy of Ruby and Sapphire and be like, can I have a go with it? Because I was used to like fighter games or platformers where it's more of like yeah, sure, jump in and play. Just, it's not a big deal. I didn't understand the concept of a game that like you can't really do that with, and that you have to manage the whole way through. So I was really confused when they kept saying, no, it's my game. And then eventually it all began. I was at a ski resort, and I was playing FIFA 06 on my GBA, and some kid, absolute mug, he was just like, hey, could you trade me that for my copy of Pokemon Emerald? I've no idea why he agreed to that trade, but he got scammed. He suggested it.
Who the bloody hell wants to play FIFA on a GBA? What?
Yeah.
No, he really just wanted the new FIFA game, and he was like, yeah, sure, take my Pokemon, whatever. And,
yeah, that seems like a bit of a downgrade.
Yeah, like an interchangeable GBA port, nonetheless. Like,
woof.
And so, yeah, I started that, and despite being shit at it, I loved it. I had that first run where I didn't understand that when you beat a Pokemon, you don't catch it. So when you got your starter, I thought I caught the thing that I was beating. By the end of the game, I had a level 70 Swampert nicknamed Wolfie. I don't know how I got Wolfie from a Zigzagoon, but there you go. And Wolfie only had HM moves, so he was a bit shit. And then right behind him, I had a level 42 Dustox with a similar shoddy selection, and then a level 30-something Swellow, and then everything else was just in the 20s somewhere, because I didn't switch out Pokemon. I just had my starter at the front, then sometimes Dustox would come in for like a double battle and would get most of the other XP from that, and then sometimes I'd switch in the Swellow if Dustox died. So, yeah.
God.
I started playing as a very young kid. I think I was the first year of primary school. So when I got a Game Boy Color, I was basically observing what the other kids were doing at the time, and I remember a lot of people just hitting the button A, and that's it. I never had a console game before, so I just mimicked what they were doing, and of course I nicknamed my character A, and I nicknamed my rifle character A. My starter Pokemon, of course, also was A.
That's lovely. Oh
God.
It took literal like ages for me to find Moss Deep City. There was like a good few months where I was just like bumping around. Like, I guess I finished everything there is to do in the game. I guess like that Pokemon League thing they mentioned in one town, that's going to be in the next game or something. So when I finally like found, there's this stretch of ocean you can go to a whole new city, I was like, holy crap, there's more. I was very easily impressed. But that run sadly ended with me lost in Victory Road with no hope of getting out. So that trainer is F.
Oh my god. F's in chat for that trainer.
A's in chat even.
A. God, that reminds me. I don't know, maybe this is just a constant for a lot of kids with their first run in Pokemon, but I also had a similar amount of difficulty figuring out how to strategize with my teams. I kind of forgot about the concept of Pokeballs in my very first. I was borrowing a copy of Pokemon. It was either blue or yellow. I just had my single Squirtle out and had a kind of a difficult time trying to like get other Pokemon because I was just like, other people are going to give me these Pokemon. I kind of didn't forgot about the whole, like, oh, I actually have to catch these myself, and forgot about, like, Pokeballs as a concept. So I ended up having, like, this very powerful Blastoise for a bit, and that I didn't get very far in that playthrough. Again, it was a borrowed copy, so then in future playthroughs, I had the thing where, like, oh, okay, now I have, like, other Pokemon. I don't want to switch out from this one Pokemon, and I didn't want to grind, so because of that, I had this one very powerful Blastoise and just some relatively weak other Pokemon, and just being like, well, heck, if this one Pokemon goes down, the rest of my team is toast, because it's not going to go good for them.
Honestly, it's not the worst way to experience the game, because like the first game's grind is very steep.
Going off from Gen 3, I was a very avid Gen 4 fan. Like, that was probably the period that I was the most into Pokemon. All of the spin-offs, I watched a pretty decent chunk of the anime. My sister had a copy of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. DS, she only had a DS, and she mostly used it for, like, GFGs, like stuff like My Sims, Animal Crossing, and that. So she really liked the story parts, like, oh, this story of this, like, Gardevoir, and what's going on here? Whenever it got to the gameplay, she was like, I'm confused, Hovin, you play it. Yeah, Hovin, which is totally my actual name. So I basically got a free game I didn't have to, like, ask for, so that was nice. Gen 5 came along at just the right time for me to be at an age where I got sort of self-conscious about liking Pokemon for a stretch, like mid-teens. So, like, I was disappointed that they weren't waiting for the 3DS and going for 3D models, and at the time, something about the sprite work looked off to me, I guess just because I was very used to the way Gen 4 look. And I've still not played it. That's still like a blind spot. I do own it now, and I've been meaning to, but we'll see if I can get to playing that before we actually get to the black and white arts in this retrospective, I guess. I got back into it with Gen 6's nostalgia pandering, like, you know, you can get any Gen 1 starter, and you could play it, you can get like a mega evolved, you get like a new Super Saiyan mode Charizard. Okay, yeah, you got me. And like, I've been playing every gen since then, but like 3 and 4 are definitely my golden years. And I also went back and played like Gen 1 on 3DS when it came out. So the only ones that I've not played, because I did do Heart Gold, Soul Silver as well, the only ones I've not played are OG Gen 2 and Gen 5. Right now, my big Pokemon thing I'm doing is the tabletop RPG, Pokemon Tabletop Union, which is really hard and really complicated.
United,
yes.
Pokemon United, that's yeah, that's a
different thing.
Yeah, that's a I'll save my thoughts on that game's monetization for another day.
Oh, it's the fucking gacha game that Curio made a video about. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I played like a bit of that, but no. Pokemon Tabletop Union is like
United.
Fuck! Why do I keep calling it Union?
You're just in your Pokemon Ranger mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because like, if you've only had experience with like D&D 5e, imagine that.
But set in Pokemon.
But only instead of just controlling one character, you're controlling 7 slightly less complicated characters, and it's so much to manage.
Yeah. Fun thing about myself that I didn't mention up at the top, I actually GM, in addition to all the stuff I do, I'm the forever GM for my tabletop group, and we don't run Pokemon Tabletop United, but we do Pokemon Tabletop Adventures, which was the original incarnation, which is very similar, although some of the rule stuff, there's some slight differentiation between the rules of the two systems. I don't know, there's discourse about Adventures versus United in terms of that Pokemon Tabletop community. The consensus seems to be more United is the better designed one, but I don't know. I will say United gets updated a lot more often in the fan community.
I'll just say I'm enjoying the campaign, but I need a tailored strategy guide of my team in order to properly play it.
I'm the one who did the strategy guide.
Thank you, Wensleydale.
Pokemon is one of those things where it's like, it makes you very aware of how, dang, this is really optimized best for a digital role-playing space where like damage outputs can be calculated by a computer rather than a like dice rolls, because boy howdy, you do a whole lot of math in that system.
Yeah. Oh my god. I specifically modified the calculations for the damage rolls to make it easier for me because I'm shit at math.
I GM a whole campaign of Tabletop Adventures, which slightly homebrewed region with its own story and all that stuff, and Pokemon's been just like one of those things that has kind of been a very big constant for most of my life. Even if I haven't played every single game entry, I haven't seen every single episode of the anime, and I haven't read through every volume of the manga, it is one of the earliest things that I have like fond memories of, and it's been like one of those things where if it wasn't the anime, it was enjoyment of the games. If it wasn't the games, it was me reading through the manga. And if it's not that, it's been me doing my tabletop stuff with it. And I suppose for many people in our age, like, that's a lot of people have that similar thing that you guys described of like, oh, it being considered uncool to like Pokemon after a certain amount of time. I don't think I ever went through that specific phase. I was just like, oh, I don't like I know for other people they're like, Pokemon's dumb, why are you still playing that stuff? But I kind of just ended up sticking through most of it pretty much most times in my life. The only times I fell away from it was when I didn't have a means of like playing the latest game and was just like away from there. But yeah, as a result, it feels very hard to speak about Pokemon objectively, even though, objectivity and art criticism is kind of overrated, but,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's hard to speak about anything objectively.
Yeah, but it's like, when it's such a presence in your life, sometimes it's like, dang, how much of this is just because of that nostalgia, or how much of it is through its genuine quality and impact and stuff like that. Listener, if you can tell, I have a lot of thoughts about the anime, I have thoughts about the tabletop. I just have so many thoughts about Pokemon in general.
Which game did you start with?
So technically the first one I played, like I mentioned, was a borrowed copy of Pokemon Blue, but that wasn't one that I owned. The first one that I could say was like an actual personal copy of ours was Pokemon Fire Red, but that was one that I didn't have especially fond memory. Well, I didn't have like bad memories with it. Like I wasn't able to beat it, I wasn't able to kind of wrap my head around it, but honestly the one that I most associate with like my Pokemon experience is Pokemon Pearl. I know for some people Gen 4 is like when they start to fall off of Pokemon, but that was, I don't know, there's something about that game and its like environment that it ended up sticking with me the most, and the one that gave me probably the most fond memories in terms of like my game memories.
Sinnoh's a very comfy region, I think.
It is. It's got the best music, Do Not At Me.
Canalave City, the piano.
Canalave City, Route 209, freaking the fight area. Banger after banger after banger. I was a nerd when I started my journey, and I'm still a nerd about it now. Oh, also, this is something we could ask. What type of starters do we gravitate towards? I'm a water starter type of person.
Grass, always grass.
Always grass?
It was a very underdog type. From the very beginning, I started gravitating towards it.
Okay.
To this day, I find myself gravitating towards characters with grass powers and such. In PTU, I play a mono-type grass team.
Which is actually a very feasible strategy in that game.
Oh, yeah. The tabletop games do... A nice thing is that they do reward like people doing things that wouldn't be necessarily optimal in the actual games. Like they give you special bonuses for having the same types and all that stuff. But Hovin, what type of a starter do you go for?
Oh, I'm very all over the shop. Actually, I like to vary it up. I think I'm one of those varieties, the spice of life sort of person.
Sounds good.
I think as a kid I went for the very generically cool ones, like Sceptile, I thought was awesome. Infernape, Charizard. Now I think the Bulbasaur kind of Torterra types are more my speed. The slightly sort of the less sleek, but like with a lot of kind of sort of trusty personality to them, I guess. I try to, I don't know, there's no one specific thing, it's just like what grabs me at that moment, really.
Okay.
I often find myself rolling my eyes at the discourse of, oh, which gen has the worst designs? Oh, this Pokemon is ugly. Like, who cares? This is supposed to be a game about making friends with magical animals and taking them on a journey. Like, discarding them when they're not hashtag aesthetic seems like it goes against the spirit of it.
I do not understand anyone who has the emotional energy to be mad at Pokemon designs being ugly. Like, guys, who cares if they look like an ice cream cone? It's fine. I think that sort of falls in line with some Pokemon fans just really, really wanting just all of the Pokemon to be super cool looking.
All of them to be Lucario, basically.
Yes, they all want them to be either Lucario, Charizard, or Absol. It's like, guys, they can't all be edgy. We can't just have all Mewtwo's or else it's just gonna be Digimon.
Fucking edgelords.
Thing is, I don't know, I associate, like, early seasons Digimon with having quite kind of ugly, cute designs. Like Agumon, he's very, like, he's got, like, the scraggly fangs and, like, the very reptilian eyes.
This is true.
I guess, like, the evolved forms do get very action figure.
Yeah, I'm mostly just thinking of, like, the final Digiforms.
Oh my god, so many guns.
So many guns, so many boobs, just, like...
Can we fucking talk about the Pikachu's Electric Journey manga sometime? How fucking horny it is.
That's one that I don't have as much experience with, but yeah.
Level the playing field a bit.
So you haven't really talked about your experience with the manga?
Oh, with the manga? Yeah. So, interestingly enough, my PokemonAdventures was actually similarly my first manga. I was walking around the comics section of my local library. First thing that I encounter, I look around and I see like a single issue comic book with like Pokemon on it. I'm like, whoa, what is this? And it's like something that Viz Media did very briefly in the early 2000s was they tried to release the Pokemon manga in like single issue comic books where they were mirrored and like, you know, printed on the flimsy glossy like comic book paper and stuff like that. And I was looking at it and whoa, there's like a cowboy Pokemon person. Who is this? And later on, I didn't find the first volume. I found a condensed volume of the first arc, which left out a number of issues and made me wonder, like, whoa, wait, it seems like I'm missing some stuff here. And it wasn't until I was in, like, middle school that I ended up stumbling on the actual full Pokemon manga in its, like, actual original form. And that's how I got acclimated to reading manga from right to left and all the differing arcs, and ended up keeping up to date for much of the Viz releases, because as you mentioned, Viz did a reprint of those in the 2010s, and I was following those along whenever a new issue would be found in my library. So that's how I read through the very first red and blue arc, then the yellow arc, and then the gold and silver arc. And then by the time like Viz started releasing the Ruby Sapphire arcs, I was going off to college, and Ruby and Sapphire is where I end up falling off a little bit plot-wise. Like I've read bits and pieces of it through definitely legal means, and I don't have a lot of memories. Actually, no, I think back, I have read bits of Diamond and Pearl as well. Yeah, afterwards I ended up falling off, but after this year, I ended up buying, like, the box set, and it got me, like, thinking, like, this is really cool stuff. I'm just rereading through it a bunch this year, and it's been very enjoyable.
Okay, wow, I'm looking at the wiki. For some reason, I was under the impression that the manga just stopped, like, around Gen 6 or something. I didn't realize it went all the way up to Sword and Shield.
Oh, no. They're still running. I'm sure you guys can attest to the accuracy of this statement, but it's not the longest running manga series out there, but it is up there.
Oh, I mean, I think the longest I know of is Kochikame.
Fucking Kochikame has its, 120th volume or something, or even further.
No, 201st is what's coming out soon.
Yeah.
Its official run ended at 200, but they're doing an extra volume at the mangaka's leisure, I guess.
Well, what I mean to say is that, it's very rare to see, a manga that is designed to be a promotional tie-in to a property that lasts this long. Viz Media has done a bunch of other ones. There is the Legend of Zelda manga, the Super Mario manga. I know they've released a couple of Dragon Quest mangas and Kingdom Hearts mangas, but none of them last as long as PokemonAdventures. Partially because they only have so much source material to go through, I suppose, but...
Yeah, no, I know the Kingdom Hearts ones are very, very condensed, and I think a bunch of the games they haven't done. Well, I don't know. I should, of all people, should be someone who knows a decent amount about the Kingdom Hearts manga, but I really know nothing.
That seems pretty emblematic with that property in general.
We should probably mention that this was serialized in the Koro Koro magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Japanese, obviously, so... Shall we talk a bit about the characters of the series, then?
Yeah, we got 25 Pokedex holders at this point, and that's not even going into side characters and the way they interpret the gym leaders, and...
Do we count Wally? Do we count Charon and Bianca?
Yeah, there are too many. We'll get to those when we get to those.
There are 3 characters each named after the colors black and white, but because Charon and Bianca are as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, that's true. Well, also there's Blake and Whitley, because, they did the black 2, white 2.
When I first saw the Japanese names are just Lack 2, White 2, I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah, that's...
Sounds like a Code Geass name, because then C2 and V2.
I mean, I guess the common joke is that about the Pokemon universe is wow, your parents must really hate you if they named you Red or Gold.
Those are cool names.
Ruby and Sapphire, those are okay, but... And, you sometimes get a sun or a moon, but... How many people do you know that just are known as X or Y?
Oh, do they actually name the trainers for that gem mart? Oh, wow.
I think Sword and Shield are localized as...
Pseudo and Shield Milia.
Oh, I was hoping we'd get Sword and Shield versus Swordbert and Shieldbert, but oh well.
The girl is named Shilly, so there's that.
I fucking loved in Gen 4, in the Sinnoh arc, when for half of the manga, Platinum hasn't come out yet. They basically had to go she's called Lady Bullets. Yeah, that's it.
As we talked about near the top, something nice about each of the characters is that each of the Pokedex holders have their own specific personalities, and each of the arcs tries to kind of give each new Pokedex holder a gimmick. At the early generations, they're standard, we got Red and Blue, who are kind of just the standard rivals that they get fleshed out a lot more, but they kind of just start off as kind of generic Pokemon trainers. But the thing I love about this manga is that they kind of just immediately decide to kind of escalate and get really creative with the capabilities of what a Pokemon trainer can be. You end up getting this cowboy Pokemon, archer Pokemon trainers. You end up getting people who want to be fashion icons, and it's one of those things where they flesh out these trainers and really differentiate them to kind of showcase there's more to the world of Pokemon than just battling and stuff like that, which ends up playing in very interesting ways.
I do have a really soft spot for the Gen 1 trainers, especially... Okay, we need to decide something, and this is going to be important. Okay.
Oh, this is where we come at an impasse.
Yeah, as you may know, the first Gen 1 games in Japan were Pokemon Red and Green, and in the English release, and afterwards, in the global release, they were called Red and Blue. In the Japanese version of this is why the rival character, the Gary character, is called Green, and in the Viz Media version, he is called Blue. We need to decide something. How are we going to refer to this Gary rival character who appears at the start, and the third character who appears later on?
Well, I mean, I'm a little biased considering that Like, I grew up with the Viz Media releases and the American releases as a filthy American. I'm sorry. I'm okay going whichever way, but I posit that, our Gary Oak character does have a Charizard. Oh, God. It occurs to me that...
It doesn't work well with Fire Red and Leaf Green, does it?
No, it doesn't. But when I think about it, his design with his signature turtleneck and stuff like that, based on Blue's design, he's been historically... Oh, look at me doing that. Look at me calling him Blue already. That shows my bias. The Gary character has been traditionally... has purples and blues in the clothing, especially in the more recent games, like in that Pokemon Masters gacha game, they gave him like blue theming to him. I don't know. That seems kind of in line. I will say, this is one of those things that makes looking up online stuff and fan content for this very difficult. When I try to browse Tumblr for like PokemonAdventures stuff, like for specific characters, when I search up, like, Trainer Green or Trainer Blue, it's like...
I mean, the thing is, I just go on the games, so I always refer to the game characters as, like, red and for the boy character and green for the girl, and then just call... I guess I call him Gary, though sometimes Blue.
I mean, I feel like anyone who's going to be pedantic enough to be like, actually, you should be... I think you meant to say... Blue, like, it's okay, come on, like, it's fine, guys, we can, listener, it's fine, breathe,
Well, if we're going by designs, I think in the gold and silver part, Blue, the boy, has a green jacket, while in Fire Red and Leaf Green, the girl, has a blue top. Also in the Origins anime, Blue, the boy, has a green shirt, while in the Sun and Moon games, his sprite has green trousers and shoes. But that's the thing, I don't really want to argue the validity of either name, because it will mostly depend on where you come from, what localization of the manga you had, or if you had any in your country in the first place. Hell, even in the Chuang Yi translation, blue was green and green was blue. And for this reason, I don't want to be arrogant to anyone who prefers whichever name, because, I had my bubble, you had your own, it's fine. I will say that I dislike the localization choice. I think, just as you said, Henry, it causes confusion in the international fandom and hinders communication. I think it shouldn't have happened in the first place. I think Blue should have stayed green as a game, and that this choice didn't expect what the internet would become later, and that this communication would be possible. Also, while it seems like it's a change for no reason, an archived post from 1999 on Game Freak's official website says the change of the game name from green to blue happened on the game re-release, since red and blue are the colors on the Star Spangled Banner, so it would sell better in the US. And for some reason a marketing gimmick made to appeal to American nationalism doesn't really sit right with me. That said though, I think we should keep calling the boy Blue and the girl Green for this podcast. We're going by the Viz release after all, plus if we have any guests on, it's going to be confusing for them. So yeah, in the future, unless I make any mistakes because of what I'm used to, Blue is the boy, Green is the girl.
I'll call them whatever the translation calls them.
With that said, I love Green, aka the girl. I often find myself drawn to roguish characters, and she was no exception. Her backstory, I remember, I found quite compelling, and in general, she was a very fun, cunning character who used Pokemon in very interesting ways.
Oh yes, I agree. She definitely presents a different dynamic than I think most people are kind of used to in their Pokemon trainers. I think she immediately presents a opportunity most people don't immediately see. Her introduction as a character is one of the first things that made fans start to differentiate her from the anime series and stuff like that, because she's kind of doing the Fujiko Lupin III type of dealie, being that sort of scamp of a character that does that sort of zany schemes and grifts, and she definitely ends up, I think, Hovin, you're going to enjoy her a lot when she pops up.
I do really enjoy Nami and Usopp in One Piece, and she gives me a really similar vibe.
we do stan a thief queen in this house.
Yes.
As for me, obviously I'm a little bit biased towards like the more early gen characters and stuff, but honestly, a character that I really enjoy is Yellow. As I talked about, like, was this weird cowboy trainer who kind of shows up one day and has all this mystery and intrigue surrounding them, and then we learn about like all these interesting powers and stuff. And I think something about their character that really makes the series interesting is that it kind of shows the variety and the ways that you can kind of differentiate these characters. Red and Blue, like our main rival trainers, you know, like I said, they're kind of the generic trainers, but like the introduction of Yellow points out how like, hey, you know, not every trainer has to be like a standard traditional, like, oh, go out and get the badges type of thing. Sometimes it's possible to just like be a trainer that just wants to vibe with their Pokemon and like just travel around and not worry about the gym badges and stuff like that. And
we like don't really get a main character trainer who is all that obsessed about badges until Sapphire, which I really love. That like most of the characters are somehow like find themselves in possession of a Pokédex just because they're doing an errand for the professor. They just want to chase after someone, like Elle did, or
yeah, and like Diamond and Pearl, they're just escorting this lady around for money, and then whoops, they become friends. Other people are just like, oh, and then when you get to the later arcs, it's like, I want to be a sky trainer and fly around, and it's some of the trainers are going to get a little bit squirrely by the later arcs.
It's kind of like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where like the stand become more and more bizarre. These kind of roles for the trainers become more and more specific.
You got to be able to differentiate them somehow, so the different Pokedex holders end up getting like these sort of like differing archetypes as time goes on. One of the things that does help to differentiate the manga from the anime is that, like, as much as I am an apologist for Ash Ketchum and don't find him as bad as some other people do, like, he is a character that is pretty set in stone characterization-wise because of the, like, he is meant to be that character that teaches the audience about the mechanics of the world of Pokemon and, like, lets them know how things work. But in this, like, because you're able to shift protagonist, you're able to give a wider variety of personality traits that, honestly, by the later arcs, half of the fun is just seeing how the different Pokedex holders, like, begin to bounce off each other once they start to meet, and seeing how those contrasting personalities end up, like, falling in with one another. That said, the fans tend to focus on those Pokedex holders. I will say, some of the other characters I do like is I really enjoy some of the things that they end up doing with gym leaders in this, because even if the Pokemon League Challenge is not a large focus in some of these arcs, they do still find a way to make, like, the gym leaders of these games have, like, some sort of presence, resulting in a variety of very interesting things that might be unexpected if you only know these characters through the games and through the anime.
Yes. Yeah, I really found the introduction of all the gym leaders in all these sorts of different situations really fascinating, and they really build them up well. Obviously, there's the advantage of you probably know them from the games, but yeah, this is kind of a curveball that really lends itself to building up these regions.
Yeah, exactly. Though I am curious, Horvin, like, of the games, like, when playing the games or watching the anime, did you find yourself attached to any particular characters?
Okay, so yeah, I did give my, like, characters that stand out to me from the games, and I think with a lot of them, they're not really character-driven, especially with the games. They're more like the characters are kind of, they could be nice, but a little bit one-note, and it's more like in, like Wensleydale said, inhabiting the world more. I guess the ones that I tend to gravitate towards tend to be the very goofy ones. So the ones I put down are Baron Alberto, Baron Alberto from the movie The Rise of Darkrai.
God.
He's like a baron who I think is trying to hunt down Darkrai, and then he gets the Darkrai turns him into a Licky-Licky.
Oh my god, those movies.
And then, like, Team Rocket posing as, like, news reporters, and they keep calling him Baron Licky-Licky, and he gets really annoyed.
Well, I will say, while unfortunately we don't get a share of zany villains like Team Rocket, I think you will find no shortage of goofy characters that can fit a similar bubble. And also, I think you'll find no shortage in villainous characters that are gonna try to use the legendaries in very convoluted and buck-wild ways.
I wonder if Emerald is as buck-wild as I remember it, now that I think about it.
Yeah. I just can't wait to talk the Fire Red and Emerald arcs, because this is where we get a little squirrely with some of the characters and some of the things that end up happening.
From one of the goofier characters, I remember I was a fan of Luca early on. Obviously, now that this may change because he's a cop.
I do the headcanon that he's David Tennant Doctor Who, like he's clearly designed to be, and is just like pretending to be a cop. I will say this about Looker, though. Like, considering that in the world of Pokemon, the only major crimes seem to be done on the part of organizations that are abusing Pokemon, I am going to say that perhaps, like, ACAB, obviously, but I tend to focus less on, think of them less as, like, police in the militarized sense that we have in the real world, and more of a more like akin to like people that are trying to like bust up like dogfighting rings and stuff like that, because you don't really see them, like, most of the time they're trying to just stop like terrorist groups and stuff like that.
I don't know, there might be a reason why we have no Ainu people in Sinnoh.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh dear. Ruby is extremely fun in how campy is, and like obviously very formative for me in that regard. And back then, in how much in touch with his femininity he was, it must have been a risk to like do that with the protagonist at the time.
Oh yes. Well, I think something that arc, as we'll get into with that arc, like they specifically point out how like that causes tension between him and his father, Norman, the gym leader. It's like, oh, what they do with Ruby ends up being like very interesting as time goes on.
Some of the reveals about him later on, I'm not that much of a fan of, but we'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah, definitely. But at least as his main characterization is, once, like when he's first established, yeah, it is cool to see him be like super flamboyant and be open about like making his Pokemon as glamorous as possible, which is fun.
I had some other goofball characters that I liked. So Bidoof from Pokemon Mystery Dungeon 2, he's not really like that silly or zany. He's just like a friendly, like, you look at what a Bidoof and imagine what their personality is like, and he's basically like that. Like a loyal, like, kind of, yeah, he's a fucking Bidoof. And he's like very friendly to your character when they join the guild, and like shows you the ropes, and yeah, he's great. And then I think the other one I had was Guzma from Sun and Moon, and I think everyone knows why someone might like that character. He's a big goober.
Are we going to talk about the special Pokemon Mystery Dungeon that the mangakas of this... Yeah, no, Viz Media did publish a...
Oh, that sounds cool.
Oh, could do.
It was only a single volume, though, very heavily condensed. It's not a very long one.
Yeah, I could do. Coming back to some of my favorite characters, this may be controversial, but my favorite trio were probably Diamond, Pearl, and Lady Burlitz. Please don't kill me.
I don't have too many strong memories of that, so, you know, go, yeah. I can see that.
I remember some people were really put off by the Manzai dynamic that they had. But honestly, I'm a language learner by nature. I was interested in the differences between languages from the start, so I was quite interested to see what the actual jokes might have been, and this was kind of interesting trivia to me. The comedy routine that they had perhaps wasn't funny as it might have been to a Japanese reader, but it was interesting trivia to me, with how like the comedic dynamic was established early on, and how easily they could later break the decorum and use kind of that setup to have some kind of character drama juxtaposed with the usual clownish dynamic. I found it really surprising and quite compelling.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Emerald, I found quite annoying at the start. It may change. I was glad for surprising little person representation. And again, it's one of the characters that wasn't really based on the characters in the games themselves. It was an original design. We talked about the gym leaders. I really like how they were handled, and that in every region there was kind of a designated leader of the leaders. Like in the first game, it turned out to be Erica. Then Price kind of took that role, and then in the next game, Watson was like the senior gym leader at the time.
Oh, Watson, yeah, the electric guy. I'm going to be interested in seeing how they end up squaring with some of the gym leaders in the future gens, because I got to be honest, I don't have very strong memories of the gym leaders in gens 5 and 6, but the Sword and Shield gym leaders, those gym leaders, like, people at Game Freak realized, okay, we just need to make the largest group of attracted people we possibly can make for this gen. They more or less understood the assignment. We got something for everyone there.
Yeah, that's the first one in ages where they really stick out to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also just have a bunch of really showy cutscenes of an arena, like showing them all off. Like the big start of a sporting event.
Oh my god, I'm flashing back to all those racist fan arts of Nessa. Didn't want to have this flashback.
Yeah, there's that element as well. People get real horny for some of these characters.
Oh, not me, never me. Just collar.
Yeah, yes, never me as well. No, could not imagine.
Henry, do you want to go into some of your favorite moments from the series?
Well, I don't want to spoil too many things for Hovin here, but I will say most of my familiarity is going to be occurring in the very first arc, which I imagine is very similar. But I do really enjoy a certain reveal that occurs near the end of the Pokemon Yellow arc, as well as like just the general scope of like the conflict that occurs, and which is a similar thing that I saw in the Gold and Silver arc, which I know some people took a little bit of issue with how they kind of some of the weird decisions they made with the villain in that one, but I don't know, I really enjoyed some of the stuff that they ended up doing near the tail end of that. If I had to like name specific moments, there's a battle that occurs between Red and Blue, utilizes a lot of strategy. Honestly, like the actual league battles that do occur when they occur few and far between, the amount of strategy that they put into there and talking about like the specific tactics is one of those things that I very much enjoy about this series. Like there's a level of creativity and you sometimes don't see in some of that stuff, in some other Pokemon media, where it takes the somewhat low-key standard JRPG combat and turns it into something that has like all this pathos and like very intense moments. Like I said, I don't want to spoil too many specific things for HOVIN'S sake, but
For mine, I just have like how do I expect certain events to pan out?
Yeah, basically what we've said so far.
The gambling hall in Celadon is going to launch into a full Kaiji-style gambling arc, where the protagonists are roped into, like, a pyramid scheme, and it becomes, like, a huge, like, kind of psychological mind game about them losing all their money and having to game it back.
You're getting with the wrong generation, but you're not too far off.
Kyogre versus Groudon will be a big Super Saiyan fest with lots of crazy, like, auras and attacks.
I think you will find some some of those more accurate than others. Just to give your predictions, Horvin, what do you expect to happen with some of the evil teams? Like, do you have any, like, expectations for, like, some of their evil schemes?
Like, Magma and Aqua, they're going to be like Saturday morning cartoon villains. I feel like they're going to be very larger than life and really lean into, like, the sea and the lava themes a lot. I imagine that Cyrus's is probably the most close to the game. It's quite involved. And I'm just going to totally go out there and say Team Flares will be totally different. It's going to be completely embellished, complete original thing to the manga.
You're not wrong, but the ways that it's different, I don't think you'll be able to anticipate how different they're gonna go with that once they get to that arc, because
they're trying to make like a Pokemon fighting ring underneath the city with the Eiffel Tower in it.
I will say nothing. Wensleydale, what favorite moments do you got? Yeah.
Some of my favorite moments, as I said, I really like the vibe of the confrontation between Diamond and Pearl. I only vaguely remember most of these. But yeah, I really like how Diamond started to assert himself as an equal in the relationship. I don't remember how much it holds up, but at the time it was like a really shocking development for our passive protagonist, and I guess I just really value that in storytelling. I like the tournament that we get. It's not that much of a spoiler that we get a tournament between the gym leaders. It ends up having some of the more really fun strategic battles, and I really enjoyed that.
Oh, yeah!
There is a fight between Agatha and Glue. I remember her feeling really threatening at the time with how eerie her variants of Golbat and Arbok looked, which they look really demonic and not like the sprites in the game at all.
Like, the manga is not afraid to make some of these characters look especially intense and kind of scary in order to help get things to a cool and intense place.
Jumping on the opposite side, kind of pushing against that edgelordism, every time Silver can't be an edgelord rival because Gold is fucking with him too much.
I always enjoy that sort of dynamic.
That's like the time where Silver, it's not too much of a spoiler, he gets a wanted poster based on Gold's description of him, and since like Gold wants to catch him on his own, gives him a description of like those puffed up lips and basically swollen cheeks, and in another chapter Silver sees that and he's like, huh.
Yep. And a weird nose. That is another thing that this manga does very fun. It's sometimes they take the very self-serious characters and kind of just call them out for being like too full of themselves, which result in like there's going to be some fun interactions with some of those. You kind of get that with the rival Blue as well, with like some of his really edgy stuff. Like they make him like basically a kind of like a samurai. He's more of like a kendo trainer, but it's still like, okay, you just really want to give this guy a samurai sword. All right, cool.
One more thing, I do like when some of the goofy, mundane stuff of the Pokemon world becomes like the, pardon for TV tropes vocabulary, but like the crowning moment of awesome. Every dex holder finds themselves with a certain role, like fighter, healer, evolver, trainer, catcher, trader.
Trainer, flyer.
One of the characters gets depressed for a bit because there is nothing special about them, and after that they realize their true potential and they're like, fuck yeah, I'm a breeder, let's go! It's so goofy and I love it.
Definitely. There's some fun stuff with that. Oh wait, no, he's called the Hatcher.
Do you want to talk some more about your preconceptions, Hovin?
So what I've gathered, it's definitely, because obviously the games have to follow a very set formula, that you kind of, they have that very, obviously are very battle-focused, and the characters are just ciphers that you can, like, insert onto, whereas, like, with this, you definitely get the, you're able to vary it up more in order so that the manga itself can have more variety. And I'm interested in seeing some of the more out there, which gens are more out there and wacky, and which ones are a bit more reined in. Stick closer to it.
Any more final notes on that, or shall we get to the Q&A?
All right.
Yeah, we might as well. Some cues.
Gotta ask him all, yeah.
Whoops.
So, most of these are from my friend Zeno on Twitter. So her first question is, if you were a gym leader, what gym type would you be, and what Pokemon would you have? I guess, for me, this is actually a really hard one, because I like I said earlier, I don't really gravitate towards one type. I guess I'll say water, because I went to the aquarium as part of my job recently, and I really like sea life. Give me like a Relicanth, a Wailord, a Kingdra, a Lantern, and a Swampert.
I was also going to gravitate towards water types as well, although water types end up being the ones to have the most variety with that sort of stuff. If I had to break it down to a single type of Pokemon, I actually would probably go towards dark type Pokemons, not because I'm particularly like goth and all that stuff. In every single Pokemon game, I end up just accruing a large number of psychic types, like psychic and dark types, that I don't know what it says about me, but those tend to be like the Pokemon that I tend to like attract. You know, I keep a good Gardevoir Gallade duo to balance out physical and special attacks. Currently actually playing through Pokemon Shield right now. The Hatterene, however that's pronounced, the one that looks like it's under a giant hat. Haven't used them a large amount. I'm having a hard time thinking of like a specific team loadout. Wensleydale, tell us your team loadout while I think about mine.
Okay, so luckily I have a ready-made team, which I posted in the chat. I posted my PTU character sheet. I would obviously be a grass-type leader. I guess I would have a balance of other types in my team as well. So I have a Jumpluff for flying type, so a Ludicolo for water. I nicknamed them all after Dickens books or characters.
That's lovely. I love that.
There's Pip, there's Oliver, there's Scrooge, there's Trotty, Nickleby, Pickwick, Pickwick Papers. I would have a Shiftry, an Abomasnow, definitely. I do have to pimp out my ace, Pip. No one ever expected him to be like the ace of the team and to carry every battle. He's super tanky. He just annoys everyone with status conditions, with leech seeds, your sleep powders, your toxics. He's quite durable. He also has synthesis, which he almost never needs to use. He just keeps tanking everyone and getting the strats that most annoy people.
I was looking through my past Pokemon teams because something that I can somewhat credit to the PokemonAdventures is that I'm that kind of nerd that thinks of very elaborate headcanons for each of my Pokemon teams.
Yes.
And thinking about, what would my Pokemon's personalities be? How would they bounce off of each other? It's a whole thing. And
yes, I love that.
Because of that, it's very hard for me to actually gravitate towards a singular type. I put in a little bit more thought, and I think they're a similar archetype, but they don't necessarily have the same similar Pokemon typing. But sword-themed Pokemon tend to be like ones that I would want to construct a team on, because based on like my previous Pokemon teams, like, and that ends up gravitating more towards steel, like a Scizor that I've had for a very long time, and like there was a Scizor that I had in Fire Red that I got all the way to my Pokemon and did transfers with that. I'm talking Scizor, I'm talking Kabutops, there's Bisharp from Gen 5, Gallade, as well as Garchomp, and just give off the vibe of like having blades, which, I don't know, that makes me sound extremely edgy, I realize.
I was gonna say, first you chose Dark, then you chose, Sword Pokemon. You spent the whole podcast shitting on Edgelord. I love it.
I know.
Henry.
I know. I don't know why. I don't, maybe it's because I hate myself. No, I don't, but no.
I mean, I always thought Scizor and Sceptile were really cool.
When I was very young, I had this somewhat, it wasn't even edgy, just like one of those like my first OC things that people do where they're like, my Pokemon trainer would train alongside my Pokemon. Like I just had an idea of like my trainer OC do not steal, like basically training with his Scyther by like sword fighting it and stuff, and it's just like,
I can vibe with that.
It sounds so edgy when I describe it like that.
I guess, I don't know, I feel like that could be That could be played as like a very over-the-top goofy character, though. You could have like an old-school like duelist type or something.
Yeah. It kind of just makes me think like, man, I just made a shonen protagonist without realizing.
My OCs were always really weak and androgynous. I wonder why.
My Pokemon OCs would also be like researcher types because they wanted to know everything about it and be very analytical about their Pokemon. I wonder what that says about me.
So then we get to the second question by Zeno. If you could design your own Pokemon region, what real-life region would it be inspired by? I guess I'm going to go patriotic with this one and go with Poland. Evil teams would basically be a nationalist gang of
Poke-fascists.
fascist homophobes with Hisaria wings. It would be a flying type.
Yeah, they would be very eagle-focused, I imagine.
Yeah.
Bunch of Pidgeots and Braveries, and I can see that.
I imagine since we have a legend about Golden Duck, I imagine that Psyduck and Golduck would be considered near legendaries in that region. I imagine we would have a regional variant of that.
Ooh, I love that.
I guess a fairy type Golduck that can make wishes come true. So there is this Polish legend from my city, actually, about a dragon who was occupying the Wawel Castle.
Ooh, yeah.
It was basically defeated by a shepherd feeding it an explosive sheep full of sulfur. So I guess in my region there would be a dragon legendary and also a regional variant of Mareep or Wooloo. That would be actually fire and poison type or rock and poison.
Okay.
What about you guys?
Mine is one that makes some of my countrymen consider me a bit of a traitor, given the results of the Euros, but I'd go with Italy. We've not really had a Pokemon region that has a very Mediterranean vibe to it. You could have like an old-timey battle Colosseum, like to mirror like the Colosseum in Rome. You can have the Pokemon Leaning Tower of Pisa for the Battle Tower. You could have like a racing mini game to kind of mirror like the Ferrari race tracks, where you race on a Pokemon instead. I think one enemy type would be incredibly like PDA couples that are always like making out with each other as their battle sprites or animation, and you can get frequent triple battles where it's a couple and like a photographer. Because if you go onto any beach in Italy, you will always, it's like you've walked onto like a photo shoot. Like they're always like picking each other up out of the water or making out like in a really like Hollywood sort of pose, and people are taking like their friends taking a photo, and it's they're such poses. It's great.
Okay. I mentioned before I GM'd a Pokemon tabletop adventure campaign. I made our region based on England. I don't want to claim full credit because the channel Mr. Buddy on YouTube, who like did a pretty popular series of videos like what if this place was a Pokemon region.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that.
In fact, like he did Greece, Western United States, and Horvin, coincidentally, Italy.
Hey.
I love how you pronounce Horvin.
Deck to Horvin.
The specific conflict was there was a group of essentially Poke-Romans wanting to reconquer the region because, you know, historically modern England was formed off of the back of the Roman invasions back in the early BCs. You got these like Romans known as Team Imperium trying to conquer the region for their own nefarious purposes. Because of that, the Elite Four, who are based off of Arthurian legends, are considering closing off the country so that they could supposedly, quote, neutralize this threat, you know, keep the bad people from coming in. But as it seems to be causing more problems, I don't have any fake Pokemon except as made by the original video by Mr. Buddy. There's a toxic dragon based off of the legend of St. George and the Dragon, and a sort of unicorn kelpie type of thing as the two legendaries there. And I have two competing Pokemon universities. My group is currently in a stand-in for Norwich, call it Northwatch, where there's a really famous prep academy for Pokemon trainers there, and legacy kids go into like these British boarding schools and them being kind of jerks. But I don't know, England is very fun because it has like old ruins with like all of this history.
Yeah, no, it's kind of wild. You just like walk around and it's like, oh, see that building? It was made in like 1100. It's like, okay, wow.
We are very fucking Eurocentric, by the way. I mean, obviously, write what you know.
I've mostly gone on holiday in Europe, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think it would be very cool to be able to see a Pokemon region that's set outside of the very Western and Japan-centric regions, although I don't know how much I would trust Game Freak to be able to make a region that would, say, be based off of Kenya. That feels like a potential recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's a shame. A Brazil region could conceptually be really cool. You could do another tropical one, but very different to Hoenn.
Oh god, now I'm just thinking about it. My next Pokemon campaign is going to be actually set. I'm making a region that's based off of the Galapagos Islands. Some of the stuff there. I probably could have listed that one, because that one's a completely original region creation that I'm making, because that also lends itself, because it's a similar tropical setting. The historical implications of the Galapagos Islands and what they mean from evolutionary standpoints. There's really interesting stuff that could be done there in terms of the differences between Pokemon and the different islands in that archipelago. Let's see. Fave villain, fave professor, and fave gen. I'm gonna start off. I'll have to think on the villain, but I got me a soft spot for Gen 4. I don't know what it is. It's mostly the music if I'm thinking about it, and some of the stuff that they did with the Sinnoh region. But as a result, I could say Professor Rowan is a fave professor, although it's only because of his theme, and honestly, as a character, he's kind of bland.
I'd put him as one of my favorites. Wow.
Oh no, I'm saying, oh, discourse. Well, what do you like about him?
I don't want to be that person, so sorry, no. And now he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. I just, my current favorite professor is Sonia in Sword and Shield, because, I don't know, Sword and Shield has a lot of really interesting stuff characterization-wise, because it really builds up that idea of, the next generation of trainers, because, Leon and Sonia were also trainers when they were younger, and you can kind of picture Sonia in a previous life being that generic girl protagonist, and now she's a professor who's writing dissertations on Galar history and being hey, let me analyze some folklore, y'all. And that's the sort of professor thing that I'm yes. Favorite villain. Honestly, I don't find myself gravitating to many of the villains too much. Most of the villains that I encountered, they have these larger plans to take over the world and stuff like that. But honestly, I find myself lacking investment. Honestly, I really enjoyed Evil Team Dim Sun from Pokemon Rangers Shadows of Almia.
Oh, yes! Yes!
Oh, yeah.
Not because they are particularly, menacing, but I really enjoy the plot device of, in that game, they have these special devices called Gigarimo machines, which, using special dark crystals formed from Darkrai, they are able to take control of Pokemon remotely without capturing them, because, the whole thing in the Pokemon Rangers games is that you only use your Ranger stylus and stuff like that. And I think, as a device, I kind of like the idea of, just an evil team, largely trying to mind control these Pokemon. There's something that feels a little bit more personal about those stakes, I guess.
The villain is lack of consent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also just love how Team Dim Sun's theme is just rock and roll. It's you see them, and they're always very, very menacing, but then their theme song is oh yeah, grease lightning, baby. It's more it's more because I'm the only one who likes him, but honestly, every time I replay it, I'm always really surprised by how funny and kind of quirky I find Rowan. I really like how he's very serious, but also very chill. And you think he's super stern, but he's actually quite easygoing, and that dissonance is always quite amusing to me. And he's very involved with your party throughout.
That's true.
I definitely take him over someone like Birch or even Oak. who are just very functional.
I agree. I do find that I am inclined to agree. He is a lot more compelling than Birch and Oak and Elm.
Hey!
I don't know.
Hey!
And I also really like, on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, I really like Professor Kukui in Sun and Moon as this sort of chill, ripped dude
who secretly wrestles on the weekends.
Yes, and him and Burnett are really, really hot. And I like seeing them together. I love the idea of Rowan and Kukui hosting a science expo together, and they're just so opposites to each other, and that it's like the contrast is really amusing. My favorite gen is probably, despite Gen 4 being the one I was like the most into Pokemon overall, I've gotta say Gen 3. I really like Hoenn as a region. I love how varied it is, but still very memorable. I like how it leans to the tropical theme. As far as like music soft spots goes, just like that fucking compressed horn sound is just burned into my brain. I think, like, yeah, one of my favorite tracks is the beach route going up to Slateport that goes
Toot toot.
My favorite villain is, and I'm not going to mention them by name because of reasons, but the villain, the deputy villain of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers, the Explorers games. Because I kind of mentioned how a lot of characters in Pokemon can be, a little one note, and it tends to be very surface level traits that draw me to them. This character is definitely an exception to that. It's like they're already pretty engaging, and then you learn more about them, and it just makes them even more, like, interesting and cool. They're definitely one of the biggest impressions a Pokemon villain has left on me in any game.
I gotta say, similar, like, the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, like, they do villain stuff very well as well. Like, Gengar in the very first one.
They also have their own variant of Team Skull. I don't like them as much as the one in Sun and Moon, but they do have a great theme song. It's so, like, weaselly, just like, like,
yes.
these nasties are up to no good.
So I guess it's time for my answers. I will definitely agree with Hovin on the region. I think Gen 3 is like really well paced. Has a lot of, each town has a lot of personality to it, while at the same time not being like too gimmicky about it, which is kind of my impression from some of the later games. When it comes to the professor, I think I'm gonna go with Elm. He's pretty basic, but I don't know. He's got this nervous like assistant professor quality about him, which is quite cute.
That's true. He does strike me as a grad student just trying to get his hours in first. Dang, I low-key roasted both of your guys' choices earlier. I'm sorry.
A lot of my Pokemon experience is not actually engaging with the game story, but making up my own story while I'm making up my team. And this kind of imagined dynamic, like Elm has with Oak, his thesis supervisor, is kind of funny to me in my head. Yeah. So I like that. And from Vimmerlin, I'm sorry, I've got to spoil Pokemon Rangers to Shadows of Almia. Have you played it, Henry?
Yeah, Shadows of Almia? I love that. Yeah, with Dim Sun.
Please skip 2 minutes and I'll finish talking about Shadows of Almia by then. Okay, fucking Mr. Kincaid.
Yeah!
I love this one. We get this kind of like a goofier version of Snape, the stern teacher who was always like, no running in the hallways. And after we meet him as Team Dim Sun admin, the penultimate mission that you have to do when you discover that he is a villain, you have to run through the hallways to basically get to your goal and save the ship, which I thought was amazing.
It's good stuff.
And then last of all, Sindri of Jorvik on Twitter asks, who are the best team in Pokemon media, and why is it the Squirtle Squad? I think I briefly touched on having a big soft spot for Team Skull. Yeah, I like like I said, I like the goofballs. I know that they're not really the ultimate villains of the game, but they were always fun when they showed up. I much prefer a villain team, like, just kind of a silly, like, larger-than-life persona, rather than being that I want to kill and become God, or whatever that gens 4 and 6 had.
So I'm gonna go with the. We talked a lot about the games, perhaps not enough about the manga. I'm gonna go with Team Galactic from Gen 4. I think like what they do with the admins and how like the personalities clash. I think I really like that. I don't think I found the previous arcs in PokemonAdventures to have like such fun villains. Team Magma came close. Courtney was a great character. I think Team Galactic had a really nice dynamic overall.
I would not be true to my roots if I did not say, like, the OG anime Team Rocket, Jesse James, Meowth, that's right.
Oh, of course, that goes without saying. They're too great to even include in this question. Like, they don't even count that there's so much over the other ones.
But also, like, I enjoy Team Yell. Again, maybe I'm just a little bit biased towards the Sword and Shield right now because that's what I'm playing, but the idea of Piers, the gym leader, just being so supportive of his younger sister that he would coerce his entire city into dressing up as a bunch of punks to follow her along and cheer her on, and it's just like, I love the recent trend Game Freak has had of like making these seemingly scary looking teams like Team Yell and Team Skull, making them look like super scary and edgy, only for them to just be like the biggest dorks. And then the real evil people turning out to be like these big corporations. Interesting.
I mean, have you got until the end of Sword and Shield?
Yes.
Okay, so oh yeah, I do like, wow, this person's evil plan is create clean energy, but we have to do it tomorrow. This is
yeah, that's that. I don't know, Chairman Leah. I don't know what the impression that they were trying to do, like a thing of like, oh, I almost got eco-fascist vibes with him being like, oh, I'm gonna awaken this elder god so I can control and take over the world because no one else is gonna save the world type of deal. It does raise an eyebrow or two when you look at like they're trying to say about.
I read like Etonators as kind of an allegory for
nuclear energy and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sinnoh has a bunch of windmills, guys. They seem to be doing pretty good right now. Oh, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Team Yell, defo up there. Let's get to that last question then. So, Anonymous asked, favorite season of the anime? Now, in my years of being online, I've many a times attempted to talk about the Pokemon anime, and I don't know, maybe I'll whip out a video essay on that eventually. I don't know. It's hard to find the words. But yeah.
Do it.
Easier said than done, But it said like, oh, after the Kanto League, oh, that's when Pokemon got bad. It's only a coincidence that it went bad the moment that I stopped watching it as a young kid. Nah. So, I'm going to tell you this right now. Ruby and Sapphire and Diamond and Pearl, they drag on a lot. Those are the seasons that had kind of the most filler because they were like, shoot, we got a couple of years before this next game. We got to pad this thing out. Whereas with the Johto region and stuff like that, they had a little bit more leniency. But I still attest that despite it having lower quality animation compared to Journeys and Sun and Moon, the Pokemon X and Y series, especially near the front end, that has like a nice special place for me because it felt like, because honestly, Sword and Shield, while it is very good in its own regard, feels like a little bit of a reboot of the series. They kind of make Ash go to this new status quo by moving to Alola and stuff like that. I really enjoyed X and Y primarily because of some of the really cool dynamics that they had set between the main characters of Ash, Serena, Emmett, and what was Emmett's little sister named? I forget.
I've not seen this season, I'm afraid. I only saw. I think I saw a couple of episodes. But yeah,
That's okay.
Shmurmy the
X and Y was able to take the sort of stereotypical arc of the Pokemon anime of like, Ash traveling from city to city to go to gyms and all that stuff. I think that was probably the moment where that formula was at its most well polished and decently done. It's where they kind of realized, okay, the thing that works best is when we have the characters bouncing off each other. And honestly, Ash as a protagonist works a lot better as more of a mentor figure in my mind, rather than the POV student that some of the seasons kind of have him as. And I think that is something X and Y did. Although I should say I haven't seen a whole lot of Journeys, but I hear really good things about it, and I'm very interested in.
Yeah, I know Journey's got the composer for Haikyuu and My Hero Academia, so I saw clips of it with that very similar sound to those two, which is pretty neat.
The American theme song they have for Pokemon Journeys, the Journey Starts Today. It's done by oh god, who was the band that did it?
Not Crush 40, no.
No. Crash 40 didn't do that.
They did Sonic, but yeah.
Oh, that would be absolutely wild if they did that. But no. Pokemon Journeys, its theme song was done by, oh god, Walk Off the Earth. You might remember from back in 2013 that one band that played the single acoustic guitar to a cover of Somebody I Used to Know. So, yeah, YouTubers. Moving up in the world.
We all live.
I mean, I know, Nate Wants to Battle, who did a bunch of, English anime opening covers, did, the English version of the second Dragon Ball Super opening, Limit X Survivor. And it was oh my god, wow, this is getting people places now.
Oh, yeah, it's... The second one is, Haven Pascal does the second opening to Pokemon Journeys in America. They mostly are known for, doing stuff for Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff, which it's, yeah.
My favourite season of the anime, like I said, I've not seen very much of it, and I'll just have to go between... Of the two seasons I've seen a decent amount of, I have a bit more fondness for Diamond and Pearl than I do the Indigo League.
That's fair.
Obviously Sinnoh's already a comfy region. I got a lot of good moments out of Paul as a rival. I like the thing with Chimchar and how, Ash takes it in.
I agree with that. Well, I was going to ask, what did you think of Dawn as a companion?
She was fine. I liked that she was doing the contests rather than focusing on the gyms. So it meant that Ash could act as a bit of a mentor for her, but she also very much had her own path. The contest battles had some very creative uses of the moves.
Yeah, they did a similar thing with May in the Ruby and Sapphire arcs, although a couple of things with May to make her a little bit annoying. Her kind of thing was kind of being a pampered girl, and she also had her younger brother Max following around, and there was a lot of sibling bickering that
The Johto and Hoenn ones I only ever caught occasional episodes of. I never watched much of them.
Reading the PokemonAdventures arc for this is going to be so buck wild. She's so different.
The differences between May and Ruby is night and day.
Sapphire.
Oh, Sapphire. That's right. Sapphire.
My favorite season of the anime, I just watched bits and pieces of Indigo League because my parents didn't let me watch much TV as a young kid. Maybe it's just because it kind of turns out to be more of a cohesive story in my mind because I watch it on Netflix, the start of it at least. I think I'm gonna go with the Sun and Moon anime. I really like the animation in this, how vibrant it is, how expressive. Ash as a student here, obviously it's quite annoying that his experience has to be kind of rebooted for this to work.
Yeah, but it does lead way to him developing more as a personality, and the show benefited a bit from having Ash in a singular location in that season.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a bit of exploring the region, but setting everything at a Pokemon school was really quite fun, and I really like his dynamic with all the students who we know as captains from the games, plus Lily. I'm sorry, I fucking hate the Rotom decks. And Samson Oak, I fucking hate the jokes.
Yeah, I gotta say, I find it very weird. Rotoms have been kind of just, made the living technology thing in the Pokemon world, because, I remember, Rotom being this very strange and hard to find Pokemon that you can only find in this evil mansion in Sinnoh. And it's this creepy electric ghost in this creepy chateau. And now it's just oh yeah, everyone's got one of these. Whatevs.
I think your edgelord side is showing, but because now it has been domesticated
God.
and made more palatable, and you liked it when it was more dark.
Oh no! Oh no! What if I was the edgelord the whole time? Oh no!
That's my favorite season of the anime. I'm going to continue and see if it holds up.
Let me just refresh Reddit. Reddit was not very responsive.
Thank you, Reddit. I have 15 fewer minutes to edit.
I mean, yeah, I think we're good.
This is the introductory episode. The introductory episode of Duckface Diaries was half an hour long.
It'll be interesting to see how this translates to actual, discussion of each arc.
I mean, these arcs are condensed, especially in the early arcs. You can get through them in only the span of, 3 volumes and stuff. And because of that, while they are relatively dense, it's going to get a little bit more streamlined as time goes on, I imagine.
Yeah, I also think, I don't want to count my chickens before we hatched, before we have, a 4-hour of this podcast on one of the parts. But, I think we have been talking about the entirety of the Pokemon franchise, sans of, the trading card game or whatever. So there is a lot to talk about, whereas we are going to be zeroing in on one arc of one facet of it going forward. So, yeah.
There's so much to talk about, yes.
That is going to do it for the introductory episode of PodcastmonAdventures. You can listen to us on anchor.fm/PodcastmonAdventures and wherever else Anchor is going to distribute it. I'm assuming those will include Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Breaker, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Podbay, Play FM, Listen Notes, Castro, or Google Podcasts. Patreon.com/Wensleydale Cheddar is where all the links are. Everything is in the pinned post. That's also what helps me pay bills, so if you want me to devote more time to making the show better, consider supporting me there. In return, you can get your name in the YouTube credits or get access to some bonus content. As we're once again dipping into Pokemon content on this channel, Spinning Asher and I decided to record our bonus Nuzlocke of Pokemon Soul Silver. We're having a lot of fun with it, and the bonus perk is that we're naming our Pokemon after patrons. So those are patron exclusives, and the first episode of that should be available to the general public though. That's all available at the $1 tier, so come check it out and help me reach more ambitious goals like reviving World Trigger Abridged. Remember that much like the neighborhood, the YouTube algorithm is a dark abyss of sorrows and woes from which channels like these never resurface, and what helps us navigate it is liking, subscribing, and sharing the podcast with a friend. On the same YouTube channel, you can also get access to my manga video essays and Duckface Diaries, a retrospective podcast where Hovin and I cover the cult sci-fi manga World Trigger volume by volume, alongside special guests like the series letterer. Henry, where can people find you?
Me? Oh, you can find me in too many places, arguably, but the YouTubes where I try to, hit that arbitrary quota of 1 video a month, youtube.com/Henry Kathman, and then you can follow me on a couple of different social media pages, including my Twitter, @KathmanHenry. I don't recommend Twitter, though, because it's a hell site, but, we've got to do what you got to do, but then I got my portfolio Tumblr page, which has all my stuff into a single place, henrykathman.tumblr.com. In addition to that, if you enjoy listening to this voice in my podcast format, you can listen to my other podcast, The Pink Isle, which I host with Emma Corey and discuss the intricacies of differing girls' franchises that tie into different girl toy properties, including Barbie, the Bratz dolls, and the Tinkerbell movies, as well as some other stuff down the road. You can find that on all your favorite podcasts, wherever you cast your pods. Just search up The Pink Isle and @PinkIslePod on Twitter. And then I designed a tabletop RPG based on the Cartoon Network show Infinity Train, which you can download for free on Itch.io. You can download the 92-page guide, complete with illustrations, playable classes, and 5 original adventures at hjkathman.itch.io. If you want to support all the things I do on the internet, consider chucking me a buck on my Patreon. That's what helps pays the bills.
I also have a YouTube channel, HovinwithanH, with the miscellaneous, mainly manga-centric discussion podcast HOVIN'S Hideaway, and I also have occasional meme videos. It has been on a long hiatus. I haven't had much motivation to make videos for it, because just nothing has really given me inspiration. Follow me on Twitter at HovinwithanH. I post lots of rambly manga threads where I make dumb jokes about manga and read through it and retweet art that I think looks nice.
Also, as a precursor to Dogface Diaries, you may check out Will Trigger a Love Letter to Underdogs, which is Hovin's video essay.
Yes, my magnum opus. Well, my second magnum opus, only to the video A Confession, which that one speaks for itself. I don't need to shill it too much.
Oh my god. Once again, you can find all the links to that in the description or in the pinned post at patreon.com/WensleydaleCheddar. Send us emails, questions, comments, suggestions at Wensleydale013@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter at Podcastmon or individual Twitters at WensleyCheddar, at HovinwithanH, and at Kathman Henry. And follow the Pink Isle Pod at Pink Isle Pod.
Yeah!
Look forward to the next episode where we're going to cover the red, green, and blue arc.
But until then, it looks like we're blasting off again. That's the wrong franchise, but it's... yeah.
Oh, that's so great. I didn't think of that.
It's time to duel.
Goodbye.